This is Sin Kiske. Sin is currently one of the 28 playable characters in Guilty Gear Strive, and as of the 1.38 patch, he's a very good character. He's an avid rushdown character with plenty of great mid-ranged attacks and some of the best special moves in the game. He has a half-screen poke, an invincible DP with a second hit, a fast approach that low profiles and hits low, and a high profiling overhead. On top of this, Sin can make all of these moves even better by spending some of his unique meter called stamina to either add a follow-up attack or dash in depending on the situation. Sin's set of amazing special moves can make him very oppressive, but there is one extra move that I didn't mention that is regarded as one of the worst specials and just straight up one of the worst moves in the game. This is still growing. If you don't know what this move just did, that's okay, because Sin players don't know either. By inputting half circle back and punch, Sin takes out some food and eats it. It's so unclear on what this move does that even the developers themselves didn't elaborate when revealing Sin.
Sin takes out food and eats it. This move has no attack hitbox, but something good happens after Sin eats.
Thank you, Arxis, that was so insightful. Okay, so what does Still Growing actually do? Well, when Sin uses the move, he can eat one of 5 different food items, and they all each give Sin a small buff. The meat increases Sin's damage dealt, the lobster decreases damage taken, the lizard restores health, the ice cream gives tension, and the fish increases movement speed. These can all be decent buffs depending on the situation in a match, but how exactly do you pick which food to eat? Well, here's the neat part. It's random. Sin, being the 5-year-old he is, can't decide on what he wants to eat. So he randomly picks between the 5 different foods, each with a 1 in 5 chance of happening. Let's say you're in a match and low on health. You'll want to pull the lizard in order to not die to anything. Well, guess what? Sin actually wanted ice cream. And now you're dead. However, a move being RNG doesn't mean that it's automatically bad. Surely Still Growing has some properties that make it good, right? Well, no. This move has so many downsides to it that it's almost always never worth it. In fact, there are 2 more layers of RNG to it I haven't even mentioned yet. But before I dive into that, let's talk about what makes a move bad in Guilty Gear. There are a lot of reasons why a move can be bad in Strive, and usually it's because one move outclasses the other. Baikon's 2P is probably the best example of this one compared to her 5P. Compared together, they are almost the same move, but 2P is slower, does less damage, and has less range. This means there is objectively no reason to use 2P over 5P offensively. There are also some moves in this game tied to character mechanics where their intended purpose kind of just sucks. Jacko's 214P, Recover Servant, does exactly what it's called, recover your servant. But like, why would you want to do that? Servants create block strings, combo, zone, control the screen, and even pay Jacko's taxes. There are barely any moments where you would want to manually kill one of them. There's also Bedman's 214K, call 0 times $1. I don't know why they named it that. Using it resets the timer on Bedman's automatic special moves, called errors, but given the way errors work in this game, there are very few situations where you would want to use this move to actually reset them. However, both of these moves each have unique properties that make them useful outside of their intended purpose. Recover Servant has a very short amount of recovery frames, meaning that you can actually use it to make other moves safer by canceling into it. And Bedman's, whatever the hell it's called, actually stalls Bedman for a bit in the air. This allows Bedman to mix up his air game even more, combined with his air dash. Finally, a move just sometimes sucks at everything. This is Chip's Shuriken, probably the other most unremarkable move in the game. It's an air-only projectile, and if you manage to land it, it does a whopping 10 damage. It is literally the least damaging move in the entire game, and it takes 75 shurikens in a row to kill Potemkin. But the damage isn't the only problem, this move is also programmed to lose to every hitbox in the game. The amount of lag you're also stuck in makes this extremely reactable to punish. In most matchups, using this move is a death sentence, like this. This slow move is also on Chip Zanif, the fastest character in the game. If you're trying to zone with Chip for some forsaken reason or use a full screen move, literally do anything else, like This move sucks, but at least you can do this. Alright, so now that we've talked about some other bad moves, what problems does Still Growing have compared to the rest? Well, all of them. Let's start with the biggest. When would you ever use this move? This thing has 49 frames of recovery, almost a full second. In a fast-paced fighting game, that is more than enough time for your opponent to react and punish. Using Still Growing in neutral is impossible. Every character in the game can punish easily, even full screen. And because you're playing Guilty Gear Strive, this likely means that you're also just dead. And it goes without saying, but don't use this on block, like Jacko's special. What about during a wall stick then? Well, if you do get a wall stick, you need to be absolutely sure you'll have enough time to use Still Growing before they can just jump scare you. It is true that there are some moments where you can use Still Growing and still break the wall, but those moments are very rare. It's always less risky to just go for a high damage normal like 6H, or if you have tension, Tyrant Barrel. This means that the only option that guarantees you don't get punished is using Still Growing immediately after a hard knockdown. However, this leads to another big problem. The risk reward sucks. The risk is clear and simple. If you try to go for this move outside of hard knockdowns, you run the risk of getting hit and, well, dying. But if you do go for it during a hard knockdown, you give up a lot of important things, like potential damage and corner carry, Okizeme, especially after a throw, and in some cases, potential meaty setups. And no, I'm not talking about that meat. I'm talking about the term where you time a move to hit at the end of the attack during a wake-up, creating very strong pressure. Now with all of that risk, let's talk about the reward for using Still Growing. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Not only is the reward for Still Growing random, most of the buffs you get are borderline useless. However, it is possible to get very good buffs, like a 10% damage boost for 6 seconds. Unfortunately, this has roughly a 1 out of 384 chance of happening, and there is no way to tell if you got it, and Slayer's coming at you with a whack-ass mix of, oh my god, Sid, watch out! Let's talk about RNG, everyone's favorite mechanic. I personally think RNG can be cool. Giant asterisk. I mean, Faust is pretty famous for his random item toss. His randomness not only is competitively viable, it's also just really funny sometimes. What is happening? What the fuck? And whatever the hell Asuka's doing is, pretty neat. But of course, this means that Guilty Gear's third more sinister RNG character is technically Sin. If the only random part about Still Growing was the food, it'd be somewhat reliable, but no, this thing is overly complicated for no reason. Time to pay attention because there will be a quiz after this. Including the food, there are 3 random factors of Still Growing: the effectiveness of the buff and the duration of the buff. The game determines the effectiveness of the buff first. There are 5 strength levels, with level 1 being the smallest buff and the highest chance at 33%, all the way down to level 5 with the biggest buff and smallest chance, with a measly 6.7%. This matters a ton, because basically this means you have around an 80% chance of wasting your time, or a 20% chance of getting something barely usable. Next, the game picks the food. Like I said before, each food has a 1 in 5 chance of being picked. Simple enough. It then combines these 2 factors together to give you whatever RNG curses you with, like a level 2 ice cream or a level 5 lobster if you're lucky. But regardless, they're all almost borderline useless. I say that it's borderline useless because, well, it is. Let's look at how the buffs actually come into play. We can see that the buffs are super minuscule. Like, there's no way that a 2% defense buff is helping at all, especially when most characters just melt your health bar. And even if you do manage to get a level 4 or 5 buff, sometimes it still sucks. A level 5 lizard heals 25 damage, which is literally almost the same as a jab. Oh yeah, I haven't even shown the buffs from eating fish, because that alone is an entire mess. Fish buffs your movement speed overall, but it increases specific things like walk speed forward and backwards, and the initial dash speed, and the dash acceleration speed. I mean, if you care about the exact values, here you go. But fish is kind of irrelevant on a character that can just skip neutral. I will admit though that some buffs, like increasing damage, can be very nice. Besides the incredibly low chance of rolling it, a level 4 or 5 meat can turn Sin into Diet Slayer. Surely there's nothing else that can hinder this pretty good buff, right? Oh come on! The third, and thankfully last random factor is the duration. If you specifically eat fish, lobster, or meat, the game does a final roll on the amount of time the buff is out. Because what, you thought these buffs were permanent? Nah, that'd be too nice. The time is randomly set for either 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 seconds, each with a 1 in 5 chance similar to the food. Side note, why is this move obsessed with the number 5? Like 5 foods, 5 levels, 5 different times? I don't know, maybe it's because Sin is literally 5 years old. It's important to note that the game doesn't roll for duration if you eat a lizard or ice cream, since those buffs directly increase a meter like health or tension. Anyway, imagine you roll the level 5 meat like I said earlier. That would have a 1.34% chance of happening, so basically you just got a jackpot. However, the game decides that you've just had it too good, so it rolls the duration for the buff, and oops, it's 2 seconds long, and now it's gone. Hey, thanks for playing at least. You could get extremely lucky 2 times in a row, and still have the game screw you over in the end. These 3 combinations of RNG can make the move very unpredictable and overly complicated. Having this much randomness for a move that just gives you a tiny boost is insane. With all these factors combined, you're probably wondering what the exact chances of rolling something specific are. Like, what's the possibility of eating a level 3 lobster for 4 seconds? And, if you weren't wondering that, too bad. I made a chart anyway. Here's a sheet in Excel showing all 85 possible outcomes you could get from still growing and your chance at eating them. Now, why did I take the time to calculate this? I don't know. At least I was able to submit this as an assignment for my math class. At first, it might seem like the lizard and ice cream are more likely than the rest, but they have the same chance as the rest of the foods. It's just that the duration only being a part of 3 foods made this a bit unconventional. I don't know, I'm not a professional math person. And about that fabled level 5 meat for 6 seconds, yeah, good luck rolling that with a 0.27% chance. This shows that out of the 85 possible outcomes, you're unfortunately not going to be eating some high level buffs anytime soon. So I guess that's the end of it. Still growing is just a very risky move with a horrible reward in the end. The extreme randomness on top of the buffs not even being that good to begin with makes still growing pretty bad. But is it really the worst move in the game? Well, there's one final part of this move that, in my opinion, makes it entirely unreliable, and I've actually been showing it this entire time without you probably not realizing it. Quiz time! I hope you didn't forget. First question. What level of food and duration did Sin just eat? Come on, this should be easy. Just use your eyes. Wait, what do you mean you don't know? Here, let me play it again. Wait. Oh, that's right. For some reason, there is no way to tell what you just rolled. I honestly don't even know what they were thinking. How can you make this many different combinations of food and not provide any good way to know what you got? Sure, it shows the type of food you got, but not showing the level or duration at all makes this the most unreliable move in the game. It's like if you went to a slot machine, spun it, and it only showed one of the 3 slots. You could win the jackpot and have no idea if you did or not. One of the reasons why Faust's RNG is praised is because it allows both players to react and see what Faust rolled, meaning both the Faust and the opponent can plan according to that random item. But if you decide to eat as Sin, no one knows how strong your buff is. How are you or your opponent supposed to know when the buff has ended? You can't play differently off of eating a fish because you don't know how fast it will make you. You can't play differently off of meat because you don't know how much damage you do, let alone if the damage buff is even still going. The worst part to me is that this issue is easily fixable. Just put a little indicator next to the tension meter, like with every other unique character. When Faust got his new move in an update, they gave him a new HUD icon to show which item he stored, so it's entirely possible for the devs to change it for Sin too. I was debating whether or not Still Growing or Chip's Shuriken, a move that's bad at everything, was the worst in the game, but at least with Shuriken, you know what you're getting, even if it sucks. Plus, Shuriken has the niche of being a low-risk option against Leo's back turn, which automatically makes it better in my eyes, cause screw Leo. We hate Leo Whitefang in this channel. Now at this point in the game's life with the upcoming balance patch, anything is possible. Dizzy is coming out and might ruin the meta, or not. Chip got a new move which literally gives him ground moves in the air, but I mean, I don't really care, I play Testament. And Slayer is out there killing innocent babies and lighting houses on fire. Someone please stop him. Maybe there's hope for us Sin fans that they make still growing useful at anything, but I honestly don't think they will. You see, I think still growing is terrible on purpose. Having that complex of RNG for a simple move that's just some guy eating tasty food is pretty in character for Guilty Gear. But again, Sid mains just need to hold out hope. Or maybe they'll buff Johnny again, I don't know, man. Okay, I was about to upload this video, but apparently they just revealed that they buffed Johnny and not still growing. Oh, and Gold Lewis can cancel Behemoth Typhoons into Behemoth Typhoons, and Potbuster now has armor? Arxis, what were you thinking?